Hi and welcome to another DIY project idea for kids. This is Scott, he's 13.
Hello.
And he's learning lots about DIY, aren't you?
Yeah.
Kind of?
Quite a bit.
Brilliant. The whole idea of these projects for kids are just trying to inspire young people with some simple DIY principles that they can take and just use in the future in whatever way they want. It's almost like we're teaching them about Lego, and here's the building block. It's that little building block that enables you to build whatever your imagination will expand to, okay? So I'm teaching you some techniques, and then you can use these techniques with your own imagination to create whatever you want. We're always thinking about safety, so whenever we're doing stuff, we're always wearing gloves, glasses, and we're wearing a face mask if we're doing anything which is dusty. That's always hyper important. And also, especially today, we're going to be using some really interesting power tools.
That's a big drill.
That's a big drill. So we're going to be very careful about using these, but my principle is I'd rather teach you how to use them safely than just go, oh, we're not going to use them at all. Because even the simplest thing, just like, well, anything, that, I mean, okay, I'm not sure you could damage yourself with that necessarily, but say I was, and I just, exactly, look, I just scratched my leg. So it's all about thinking about how you use tools safely rather than just not using tools at all. So today's project, it's a beautiful day, the birds are singing, and I thought the birds need somewhere to eat. So we make them a bird table, okay? So I found these bits of wood. Now, the other thing I want you to learn today is that sometimes offcuts of wood can actually be just as good as good bits of wood themselves. So this was actually from a place where they cut the wood into planks, okay? So you imagine a big round tree trunk.
And then you just put it into like a square.
Yeah, well, they have to cut it into squares. So most planks are square, bits of wood are normally square. They chop the edges of the wood off with this. So they go through a big machine and it produces these, and they can be big long strips like this. Okay, it's the bark. But I love it. It's really strong and it's very, very rustic. And one of the things I thought we could make something out of this because it looks lovely. But I want you to understand that sometimes even stuff that you might think about throwing away, you can turn into something quite useful. I've also got this. Now, this is from an old curtain pole. This is just a bit of round wood. It's quite strong. And this is just a bit that was from another one, okay? And we're going to use this as part of the design. And then this is an old fence post, okay? Now, I've already chopped the bottom.
It's a spiky kind of
it's a spiky kind of thing. There's always going to be things that adults need to get involved in when you're doing these projects. Well, not always, but a lot of the time. There's nothing wrong with that. So I made a spiky thing. So that is basically going to fall over. And exactly. But if we hammer that into the ground, I reckon that is the basis for our bird table. So let's just go through the design as we normally do. My trusty black book. So we have our pole, which has now got a nice sharp bottom, which we're going to hammer into the ground. So that is going to create the thing we're going to put the bird table on. Now we've got these two bits of wood, and I thought if we put one like that, and then we put another one like that above it, okay, and then we just use those little poles to create like a pillar.
Oh, so a bit of shade kind of.
To support it, So this protects the bird food from the rain, and also, you know, if the birds want to sit there and relax on their sun lounges or whatever birds do. So the big questions on this, where do you think the hardest points of this particular project are going to be?
Attaching these two together with those, and then maybe attaching that to that pole.
Exactly. So the big problems for me are attaching this here, because that's got to be really quite strong. But the other bit is the attaching the top and the bottom via these poles. So what I thought we would use is another technique, which requires a very big drill. Okay. The basic principle is if we drill a hole, a small hole, and this drill is just about the same size as that dowel, and we then make sure that it's just a little bit smaller than that dowel, and we then hammer that dowel, because it's called a dowel, into the hole, and then hammer it into the top, we could have a very simple solution to our problem. I think we might need to strengthen it with a screw down the top and up from the bottom, but as a principle, that's about right. So if that's the bottom, you hold it, and that's the top. How high do you think that needs to be for the average bird? You've got to be kidding me. We're not going to have vultures in the garden.
Something like that.
Something like that. Your average robin, whatever it might be. So is that going to be enough then? Would that, if it was like that, would that be enough?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Small birds get in there?
Yeah.
I'd say so. So I think this piece of wood would probably be all right. So what we need to do is we need to measure that and we need to cut it in half. So that can be our starting point. The process is we're going to cut this in half, and then we're going to measure and drill some holes in the top and the bottom, and then create our little sort of house.
Got it.
But the dangerous bits in this are definitely using this drill. Now, this is a very special kind of drill bit. It's specifically designed for drilling into wood, and it's got this little screw bit on the end which pulls the actual thing in, and then these teeth here on this edge actually cut out the wood, and you'll see how that works in a minute. But when you're using this, what's really important is this thing is going to be making, to every force there is an equal and opposite force, okay? Newton's law of physics. Every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. So as this is going round, it's going to want to push the drill like that, okay? So we have to be really careful of that. Okay. Otherwise it'll come up and smack you in the face, or it'll just, you know, so we'll do that in a second. So let's start out by just chopping this in half. Now, okay, so we're just going to use a saw that we've seen before, but without anything like this, very sharp blade. We're always going to be extremely careful of how we use it. So the first thing we need to do is measure that. So you measure it, I'll hold it, and then you measure the middle point. So we've got a pencil here, and you're going to mark the middle point.
32.5?
Yeah, so sometimes when you're doing woodwork, it's easier to work in millimetres, and you're oftentimes you work in millimetres. Okay. So then there's no ambiguity. So how many millimetres is that?
325.
Right, so that's easy to divide by 2. So what is 325 divided by 2? So it's 162 and a half. But 162, I mean, that's a millimetre, you're not going to notice that. So if you want to measure to 162, yeah, that's it. So that's the middle. So now we are going to score it in place. That's it. Now, remember how I showed you how to start it with your thumb, back of your thumb, like that, on the mark, and just very slowly go backwards and forwards. You don't need to have to get anywhere, just get it started. Just very lightly, that's it. That's it. Okay. Now when you're doing that, when you get to the end, don't do what you did. Okay. Because that will rip it as it has done, all right? Yeah. You need to keep going very gently towards the end, all right? This is rustic furniture. It doesn't matter. Now the other thing is, that's all at an angle. Yeah. That's the danger of sawing it freehand. Remember once before we used a block which had like a...
with holes in it and then...
And that made us cut it like that. So we could have used one of those. But again, it doesn't really matter. So that's going to go in there, and the thing's going to hit on the top. So now what we need to do is we need to measure some points on here that this is going to go into. So again, what's really important, and what I want to try and encourage you, is measuring is somewhere you just want to really take your time. Yep. Measure twice, cut once. So there's no rush here. It's really, really important that we try and find the right places on this, because they're both the same size, I think. 32, and that's 32. So we're going to put the hole in the same place on each one, otherwise things are going to be all wonky. Don't rush this bit. Very carefully measure the middle here and put a mark where the middle is on that distance.
189.
Okay, so call it 190, I mean roughly, right? Okay, so what's 190 divided by 2?
95.
95, so measure 95. Okay, so make a nice clear mark so we know where we are, okay? And then we're going to do halfway between that bit as well.
It's 105.
105, so measure 105. Okay, that's 105. Let's just move that out a little bit, because we're going to be, we can even draw a line between those two. Give us our central line. Okay, we just need to pick a distance that we want this to be the edge. Now, we don't want it like that, do we? No. Do we want it like that?
Maybe, yeah.
So if we did it like that, there's no strength of wood on the edge. So we want to move it in a bit so that then there's a bit of wood. So we just need to pick a random distance in, and roughly I would say 3 centimetres in. Yep, sure. We know 3 centimetres in, but that's not where the centre is it? So that's where the edge of this thing is. Yeah. So where's the centre of that thing, and what distance is that? That's 2.5, so that's 25 millimetres. We want to do half of that, so half of that is 12. 30 plus 12 is 42. Do you understand what it did there? Yep. I've found where the middle of that thing would be. So we now know it needs to be 42 inches. So you want to measure 42 along that line and put it on where it crosses there. So we now know that, and let's just make it really clear, is where the centre of our drill is going to be. Okay? Okay. And we need to do the same on this one. So measure a distance there. 202 divided by 2 is 101. So measure 101. That's it. And on this one, so 186 divided by 2
is
93. Brilliant, 93. So measure 93. Just draw a line between those two again, just so we can see where the middle's going. So we need to measure 42 in. Remember 42 to get us to the centre? Yeah. Okay, 42. So we now got our central points for the way we're going to do it. So we've now got to drill out a hole. This is where you put these on, and this is where I need to fasten it down, because this will jiggle about, and we don't want it to jiggle about. Now the important thing here, Scott, is to try and get it so that the drill isn't like that, and it isn't like that, and it isn't like that. It's as vertical as it could be, and we need to just do this. Now, what you've got to be aware of, put the point of the end very carefully, don't keep your finger off the trigger. Now, very slowly, okay, squeeze the trigger. Now, what I want you to do is we don't want to drill through the whole thing, we just want to drill down about that much,
Okay.
a couple of centimetres. Yeah, we'll pull out, that's it, keep going.
Whoa. Is that enough?
I don't know. So there you go, right?
Yep.
Now, this will then go in there, but it won't go in there. So that's quite good news, because we want it to be as tight as it possibly can be.
It's not going to fit in there, though.
Yeah, it will be by the time we've whittled it. So now we have to do the same on the other end.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to help you, okay? Stop. So let's do the second one. Now, obviously, this is quite a serious drill here. So at times you're going to have to think, okay, a little bit of support may be required here. So I'm going to just place it on there for you, and I'm just going to help. The thing is, this drill wants to pull itself into the wood. It's different to normal drills because of this screw bit on the end. So you just need to be aware of that. Now have our holes. So they don't fit, which is what we might have expected. So what we're going to do is we're going to sand those so they do. Okay? We get sanded. So put your mask on, and we're going to use this, which is our oscillating sander, just to do that. Okay, it's easier than doing it with a knife or whatever. So we're going to put on our gloves, and we're just going to do what I was doing there, just like that. So it might want to come around this way because I was using my left hand to rotate it and my right hand to do that. Turn it round. Okay, let's have a look. I think that looks to me like it'll do. Okay, fine. So now what we need to do is we need to decide which is going to be the bottom, which is going to be the top. So that has got kind of a mangy bit on it. So we're going to make that the bottom.
Yep.
So let's start out by getting those in there. So we'll just hammer her in place. That goes on the top like that.
I have to work.
You are, but what we want to do first is we want to attach this thing to the pole. So we get our pole, and remember our other challenge was how we were going to attach this. That's the bottom, isn't it? So we've already lost quite a bit of this stuff here. So why don't we just get rid of a little bit more? I don't want to get rid of it all. I just want to get to a bit where this thing can sit. So actually, what's really important when you're doing these kind of things is that you do things in the right order, because we probably shouldn't put those in yet because we want to do this first.
Okay.
So if you just very carefully, remember with chisels, we've always got to imagine where it would go to if it slipped. So if I was doing it like this, it would slip into my leg. If I do it there, it's going to slip onto the ground. So think about what would happen if the chisel carried on. So let's just see what sort of size it is. We want to mark it with our blue marker pen. Yeah, right, just mark where the pole's going to go. It may well be the bark falls off anyway. Okay, now very carefully with the chisel, I would do this like this.
Okay, yeah.
Round the circle. The reason we're doing this is because I quite like the bark. I don't want to get rid of all of it, but I definitely want to get rid of it in this circle. So this way we're like creating an area where it should just come out. Right, there we go. So that's fine. So now our piece of wood fits.
Boom.
Okay.
Perfect.
So now I reckon if we just put some screws in the top, we use a small drill, which is called a pilot hole drill, but we're going to drill a small hole, guides where the screw is going to go. Glasses on. I'm going to hold that in place, and you're going to drill. Look down where it needs to be. So put 2 in there. Okay, and drill another one about there. Okay, keep it going and pull it out, and then one just here. And lift it up. Right, now before we move it, go and get a really long screw, the longest screw you can find from the screw box. There's even longer ones, yeah? We need 3 of those. So we're going to put really long screws into it. That is really long. So put the screws in there and then use the screwdriver. I'll hold it in place. Keep going. Okay, that's it. Keep going. That's it. Last one. So now we can attach these things. If you just give that a gentle knock. And that in there, give that a good knock. Okay, now we put the hat on. There you go. So,
Boom.
we have a bird table.
Nice.
And I think, well, that's in the garden. and there's some bird food on there. I think the birds will love that.
Yeah.
And the nice thing is we can take it apart if we need to clean it or whatever, just by taking this out. But otherwise, it's a rustic looking thing. And you made that out of some scraps of wood. So fantastic. Well done. If you've enjoyed this video, please do like it. Please tell your friends and also subscribe to the channel and set your alert. And just remember, this is just simple ideas that you can take to your children to give them some inspiration of things they can do with things that are lying around that actually at the end of the day are really fun. We'll see you again soon. Thank you, Scott.